Alright, hi everybody, this is ASONX Ben, and this is episode number 17 of the collection review series, where I go over every faction's ships and crew. So the Vikings are up next with their ships. They were released in 2007 as part of the Frozen North expansion. So I'm going to jump right into things. Their main theme is longships. So the longship keyword gives 2 shots per mast, along with +1 to boarding rolls, and you can basically row when you're dismasted, like the oarsman keyword, and you can rotate on the stern at the end of a move action, similar to schooner and the turtle ship keyword and galley and whatnot. So the first ship is the Fronting, and I'll probably get some of the pronunciations wrong as usual, but this is a 3-masted longship, as most of their flagships are. The Vikings don't have any ships larger than 3 masts, and that really cripples them as a faction. They're powerful, but kind of weak in terms of their quantity and sometimes quality as well, as we're going to see in this video. Overall, the Vikings are not one of the better factions because they can't run gold very effectively. They don't have very many ships, and even their gunships are kind of fragile. Because when you eliminate a mast from a longship, you're essentially eliminating 2 of the ship's 6 shots. So if you get a couple hits, the 3-masted longship, which has powerful firepower at 6 shots to start, it gets weak real quick. So this one's okay. It's got 2 S cannons, but other than that, it doesn't have a lot going for it. It's really expensive, and the ability to take treasures from a home island isn't very good, because if you're going to use this ship, you're going to put a captain and a helmsman aboard. The Vikings don't have a combo crew that combine both abilities into one cargo space. So in this case, this ship is best used as a gunship, ignoring the ability. So the ability is pretty much irrelevant. But 17 points is a lot to pay for a ship that has average or worse stats in most categories except for the cannons. The Nagling is a little bit better. She has all 2L cannons, is 1 point more, but the key here is the ability actually works, because it's a kind of like a cheerleading type effect. So if she gangs up on opponents, she'll get +1 to cannon rolls. So this one is a really devastating gunship. This is the best pure firepower Viking ship in the game. Basically 6 shots at 2L. So this one is actually pretty solid. That being said, she's still slow. The cargo is average, and 18 points is 6 points per mast for a 3-master. So it's still a really expensive option. The Munion is a pretty good one, actually. She's cheaper. You can see 15 points, and she has a nice ability. So but the longships can't be pinned. It should say on the turn this ship rams. So the guns are very good, and you've got room to work with some crew. And this is one of the better 3-masted longships out there. So a pretty solid gunship overall. The Munion is unique because she's not only faster than most of the other 3-masted longships, but she also has a unique ability. So reverse captain allows her to go with a defensive strategy. So the Munion could have a smoke pot specialist aboard, or smoke pot shot, the equipment. Both of those cost 3 points, and then you could actually shoot an opponent up to 6 times if you've got all the L-range cannons in range, and then you can use the reverse captain ability afterwards to duck into a fog bank. And well, in that case, you'd be shooting 5 times. So you have to use a shot to create the smoke bank or fog bank. But anyway, this is a strategy I've used at least once in a game, and it is a decent strategy. And if you don't use that strategy, the reverse captain ability isn't going to be too useful. That's one of the only ways to use it effectively. So Munion is solid between the speed, firepower, and then kind of like the reverse captain smoke bank gimmick. So not a bad one at all. Asgard is okay. The ability is not very fitting. Basically the hoarding gold ability, but she's got decent cargo. She's got the most cargo so far. So the Captain Helmsman, you could take 2 treasures if you win a boarding party, but this is mostly going to be a gunship. And in that case, she falls a little bit short, because you can see she has pretty much the worst firepower so far of the 3-masted longships. So not one of the better ones, but not a terrible option for pure firepower. The Hrothgar, her armament is even worse, but she's reasonably cheap for a 3-masted longship. Got good cargo and good speed. So this is almost like a ship that could be kind of a hybrid for the Vikings. with a Captain Helmsman, you'd have good speed and 2 cargo spaces available for gold. So the Hrothgar is actually one of their better hybrid ships, although in terms of firepower, she does fall short as a 3-masted longship as compared to the other options. The Beowulf is actually the first ship in the set, number 001 from Frozen North, so kind of their signature flagship in a way. It's an icebreaker, so if you smash into an iceberg on purpose, you can eliminate the iceberg from the game instead of losing a mast. And I think they also ignore terrain except for icebergs when given a move action, which is nice but not really all that useful. This one has another kind of relatively useless ability like the fronting. +1 to boarding rolls, +2 against sea monsters, not really a big deal there. The main thing here is the cargo and the guns, which make it stand out a little bit as an icebreaker. Most of the icebreakers in the game are just overpriced and not very good. So this one is actually decent. It is nice that the Vikings got some of the better icebreakers. Most of the other ones are not too good. But this one is even better. So Polaris is from the Nordic Raiders pack, number 300. It's from Frozen North. And it is Viking. The cursed flag is a misprint on the deck plate here. It's a Viking ship. And a good one at that, because it's a point cheaper than Beowulf. It has a better and more versatile ability, the reroll ability, and then everything else is the same. So Polaris is quite good for an icebreaker, and pretty good overall as a 3-masted ship in general. So this one I like to put Sigurd Anderson aboard. He's an Admiral's Action Crew, because then you can get the reroll to try to get 6s with that ability, and you can see him in the next episode of this series. The Wiglaf is a interesting ship because she's the only regular 3-master the Vikings got. The other ones are either icebreakers or longships. This one's one of those jib type ships, and like the originals from Spanish Main, that same ship type. And this one is actually pretty decent as well. So she's similar to the Beowulf and Polaris. Rank 3 cannons, 4 cargo, L move, and then 13 points, similar to the ones we just saw. This one gets a bonus against the cursed, so she's not as useful as either of the other two, but if you're facing the curse, the Wiglaf is definitely one of the better Viking gunships you could go with, and overall, it's one of the better Viking hybrid ships as well. The Woden is kind of an enigma, so now we're into the 2-masted longships, so we're getting smaller here. This one is extremely expensive, as pricey as the Nagling, which gives you 6 2L shots. This one does not, but it does give you great cargo, and then the gold capture ability, which is really kind of strange. So we've got that on a 2-master. You're not likely to win many boarding parties, but if you want to use a gimmick fleet, the Woden is a good way to do it with the Vikings. And she's got solid firepower as well. I've used this ship a few times, kind of as a joker, just for fun, and she did okay, I believe, but definitely not one of the more, practical options for the Vikings. And just in general, 18 points for a 2-master means you're essentially paying 9 points per mast. That's kind of a stat I think is a little bit underrated. More than like 5 points per mast is just kind of too pricey, almost no matter what. And basically 9 makes it just crazy high, crazy expensive. I kind of think of the Conquérant and the Grand Vanqueur, those French bombardiers, as like benchmarks for that stat. They're 21 points for 3 masts, so that's 7 points per mast. So here you've got 9, you're paying 9 points per mast. So, and 2 rams, 2 successful ram attempts could essentially knock the Woden out of the game in a way. So really risky investment, but a fun gimmicky option if you're gonna go that route. The Donar is actually pretty good. The Vikings don't have many gold runners, but this is definitely one of them. 4 cargo, SS move, and a defensive ability, and 2 masts. So her cannons aren't good like many of the other longships that we're gonna see or already have seen, but this one is pretty much a gold runner for them. I would put a helmsman aboard, get 3 spaces for gold, and then triple S speed. So one of their better gold options, but it still pales in comparison to some of the other options at either a similar cost or a similar size. Because, for example, the Lady Provost and the Santa Isabel both have 6 cargo for 13 points. And of course, there's a ton of great 2-masted gold runners for well under 13 points. And the Freya, this one is actually pretty terrible. I would say the Woden's a little bit more playable. The Freya is extremely slow, pretty expensive, 7 points per mast. The ability doesn't really help her a ton because there's only so many things you can actually do with this ship. So you could make the cannons better, but they're pretty bad to start with, and they're going to be eliminated quickly once the ship starts getting hit. So there's not much point in doing that. Making it a gold runner is probably the better option, but with S speed at 14 points for 2 masts, you're not gonna do too well either. So Freya is one of the worst Viking ships in the game, and not really a strong option for them in general. I think at 10 points, she would be much better off. Or if maybe the cannons were both rank 2s, she might be worth 14. Not really, but you'd have to price her at that just because of the cargo and ability and guns. But anyway, the Fenrir is actually an okay option, maybe a little bit underrated. So this one has solid cargo, once again a very high price point. The cannons are kind of meh, and then she can take 2 treasures from an enemy home island just like they're hunting. So this one is okay with a helmsman. You could use her as a gold runner and or a raider at the same time. I wouldn't really try to use her as a gunship. But anyway, the Grendel is a funky option because kind of similar to the Wiglaf, she's one of a select few regular sailing ships for the Vikings. Mostly they have longships and icebreakers. This one's a regular 2-masted square-rigged ship, and it's kind of an enigma because it's kind of stacked, but it's wicked expensive. So we've got great speed, good cargo, amazing cannons, but then she's wasting a ton of points on these weird abilities, +1 to boarding against the curse, and then S-boarding. So I don't know why you would want either of those, except maybe to S-board enemy gold runners because the ship is fast and could catch them, but you're still not guaranteed to win a boarding party. Especially a 2-master, you're not going to be, it's not really much of an advantage, even if you shoot at them as well. So the Grendel, I've used her as an empty gold runner or as kind of like a support gunship. Either role is going to be overpriced for what she can give you. So this ship would have been better off without the abilities. I understand there's some thematic implications, but the Grendel is just kind of a bizarre enigma in the world of Pirate CSG. As it stands though, due to her stats, she's not a bad ship for the Vikings, but if you're going to shoot, if you're going to fight, I'd much rather have the Hugin for 15 points, and if you're going to get gold, I'd normally rather have the Donar with a helmsman for 15 points. So Grendel is okay, maybe as a hybrid, maybe just a captain aboard, but kind of just a bizarre ship in general. Sleipnir is the first 1-masted longship here. These were common actually, unlike the 1-masted sloops and turtle ships and whatnot and galleys. This one is actually a decent treasure runner for them. So basically with the ability you go out at 3S speed, grab 3 coins, come back at S+S. The cannon is good, but you don't really need to use it because you're pretty much going to use this as an empty gold runner for the most part, because the Vikings really need help there, so you might as well try that option. The Loki is not too good. Once again, you can take 2 treasures from any home island, so you could put a helmsman on it and try to do that, but for 16 points, that's just a total ripoff. I would not recommend using the Loki. This is one of their worst ships. I think maybe 8 points could have been fair, but as is, the Loki is pretty terrible. Valkyrie is slightly better, cheaper, got a lot of cargo for a 1-master actually, a decent cannon, +1 against the cursed. I would probably use this as like a tiny hybrid, I suppose, maybe. Captain and helmsman, hope you encounter the cursed, I suppose, and then leave a few spaces open for gold. You could try to use her as an empty gold runner though, for 12 points. She'd be really slow, and you could put a helmsman aboard, but anyway, so Valkyrie, not terrible as far as Viking ships go, but still pretty mediocre option. Ragnarok is worse. This one doesn't really have much going for it. It's pretty average or mediocre in most ways. I think they could have made it faster and cheaper at the same time. So she's got the massacre ability, but you're not going to win many boarding parties with a 1-master, even though Longship keyword gives +1 to boarding rolls. That's not going to make up enough of a difference there. So Ragnarok, kind of like a crappy suicide type ship, really not a good option. This one, Hlijdjalf, that's my best guess. And this one is actually decent because she's got a really great defense ability, which I hate, but at least it's not on a 4-master. And it's good speed and solid cargo, or not good cargo, but just enough to use it as an empty gold runner. a mediocre one at that, but the Vikings, again, they don't really have any options anyway, so I would use this as an empty gold runner. I'm thinking other people would probably use it as a gunship with a captain and probably a helmsman, but that's just me, because I'm trying to maximize the Vikings gold options, so this is one of the few ships that you might consider running gold with. Unlike this one, which is not a great ship. So for 12 points, you basically are going to have two 2L cannons. The first hit will eliminate a crew, so obviously it's like a support gunship, but for 12 points you're only getting 2 shots. With a captain and helmsman aboard, you'd be at 17 points. So, and not a good investment at all. 17 points for a one-masted support gunship is just a horrible, atrocious deal on firepower. So Yggdrasil has the stats going for her to be a specific role type ship. Like she's not a conundrum like even the ship before. You're kind of like, what should I use her for? Yggdrasil is clear about that, but she still stinks in that role. So anyway, Yggdrasil, thinking 6 or 7 points should be a lot more playable. And then this one actually got this, I can't remember if it was a trade. Anyway, this was one of the limited edition ones. I don't have many of the other ones like Elsinore, for example, but Kalalit is actually decent. So SL speed, good cargo, silly ability, but a good cannon as well. So this one is decent as an empty gold runner, or you could use her as, I suppose, kind of like a support hybrid with a captain, maybe a helmsman, but probably just a captain aboard. Keep a couple spaces open for gold, and you got a couple 2S shots to do a little bit of damage with. So as far as the One Masters go, this one is actually pretty decent, which kind of shows how bad they are as a faction. So that's all the Viking ships I have. There are some that I'm missing, mostly the limited edition ships, but they only showed up in Frozen North, so these are still most of their options. You can see not a great faction. They lack large ships. They don't have durability. The Longships are often referred to as glass cannons because they're powerful, but then they fall apart quickly, so get a couple hits in and they become largely useless. So Vikings aren't quite the worst faction. That goes to the mercenaries, of course, which we'll see in an episode soon. And that being said, though, the Vikings were the last faction introduced, I guess, because they came out in 2007. So anyway, so that's going to be the Viking ships. Question of the day would be, what's your favorite Viking ship, and what do you think is the best for gameplay? So beyond that, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.